Heat goes on. The chains keep moving, and Marc Daniels is dialing up deep balls. Welcome back to the Beat of Sports.
The Beat of Sports on this Thursday. Marc Daniels here. Chris Vasquez is over there. Thank Chris and Kelly and Scott Harris yesterday for sitting in for me. When I was 13 years old, I played in a county championship game in baseball. Now, I've told the story, a portion of the story before. It's the game where we were down by one. It's the last inning. I'm on first base with 2 outs. It's a base hit to shallow left field. My dad, the only year that my dad ever managed my older brother, myself, waved me home from third. The shortstop had the ball, and I was out by a great distance. And I, heartbroken, and my dad said, I would rather wave you home and take my chance and not wonder what if. And Dad was right. The kid on deck had no chance of getting a hit off the other kid, and we lost 3-2. I remember, and my parents told me the story over the years, the night before the game, I'm 13 years old. The night before the game, I remember telling my mom, this is a young, immature me at the age of 13. I said, Mom, this is the biggest day of my life tomorrow. And my mom would tell me that, not really. There'll be bigger days ahead. But if it is, make the most of it. And my mom would say that a lot to me. Our team had 5 hits that day. I had 3. The other kid that was this, arguably the first or second best player, he had 2. The 2 of us pitched and played short, combined for a great day. And we lost 3-2 in that a championship game. But you remember things like that. You know, my mom was right. Make the most of the day. I made the most of the day, and she reminded me that in many years to come. My mom was the best Little League mom ever. What I mean by that is, you know, if you play Little League baseball, they assign moms. They used to. Maybe today you can't do that. You're the mom of the game, which means after the game, it was your mom's job to make sure that she had a snack for all the kids and drinks and so forth. And then, you know, back when I was growing up, if some kid's mom brought Shasta Cola, you knew, like, all right, this is going to be a bad post game, you know. But my mom in our family car always had the backup stuff. That if somebody else's mom underdelivered, she would never embarrass that mom. This maybe from an economic standpoint, this is the best that she can do. But it was always, if you got done with whatever the snack was, hey, you could always go to my family's car because there would always be more fruit and candy and so forth. Our house was always the best house in the block to hang out in. I mean, good grief. We lived in New York. Our backyard had a baseball field and a football field, not 100 yards, but everybody played there. And when we moved to Florida, it was the same deal. Why? Because at my house, everybody ate, everybody had drinks, not just water. You know, had Hawaiian punch, high C, all the sugar stuff you weren't supposed. But my house was the coolest place. You know, if a kid came over to play, and if there were 8 kids that came over to play, and all 8 wanted to stay for dinner, Mom cooked for everybody. And you grow up with that, and you don't think anything otherwise, you know? And my mom was my biggest fan. And like I often said, my dad was my best friend, and my dad passed away 7 years ago. Moms and sons have a unique relationship. Moms and daughters do. But my mom was there. So when I got dumped in 3rd period in 7th grade, my mom said, it's okay. I think your future wife is somewhere else out there. And at the time, she didn't understand because we had a date to go to a movie that Friday, and she dumped me. But my mom was right. You know, there were not that many other women, but I managed to move on. And when I met the woman that would become my future wife, no one embraced her more than my mom. And when grandkids came along and great-grandkids came along, I learned even more lessons from my mom. My mom lived her life through her kids and her grandkids and her great-grandkids. And as she got older and began to deal with some health issues, the best medicine for my mom was always her kids. Pictures, when FaceTime came along, an iPad to see, changed everything. Both my parents were never computer savvy, but in my mom's late years, she didn't use a computer, but had an iPad and could see pictures and again FaceTime, and that was priceless. When my dad passed, the following year was COVID, and my mom still lived by herself and she was isolated. That was a hard year for all of us. It was a hard year for her. And if you told me back then that my mom would live 6 years after that, I don't think I would have believed that. But after that year, my sister, the greatest angel of all, and my brother-in-law took my mom in. My mom lived with my sister, and there's no question it extended her life. And even though my mom had physical and health issues, my sister did everything to help my mom. I mean, if they went out to dinner, my mom went out to dinner. And she was an incredibly proud woman. Last couple of years were very challenging for my mom, but she persevered. She promised my oldest daughter that she would be at her wedding, and by George, she was there, struggling and all. But things got even more challenging, and a couple of months ago, my mom got cancer, and cancer sucks. It sucks. In 2 months, the cancer spread rapidly throughout my mom's body, but she still didn't quit. And my mom had other issues, other health issues that made it very challenging. And it made it even more challenging. And yet, the first time that she met with an oncologist, learning that her body was covered with cancer, that it spread so rapidly, and the oncologist told her that she would not be a candidate for chemotherapy or radiation, my mom's answer was, then what other options do we have? Because as she said, I still have things to do in life. And the doctor said, well, we can try this infusion, which they did with side effects that would make my mom very, very tired and have some other challenges, along with the other things that she was dealing with. But my mom wanted to do it because my mom wanted to fight. Because, as my mom always believed, she had things to do and her kids needed her. My mom was the mom for everybody, even if you weren't related to my mom, not just when I was a kid growing up in Kids in the Neighborhood, but to everybody. My brother, who passed away years ago, and my sister and my friends would call my mom. She'd know about their birthdays when I didn't remember. She'd know about their kids' birthdays when I didn't remember, and so forth. The last couple of weeks, I've missed several shows, mostly because I've traveled back and forth to South Florida. Had a vacation cut short, which needed to be cut short to go back and be down in South Florida with my mom. My mom spent a lot of time in the hospital the last couple of weeks as things got very challenging for her. She got to go home for 4 days, but had to go back to the hospital last Thursday. And when she went back in the hospital, both my sister and I knew there was a good chance she wasn't going to leave. And things would get worse. And yet my sister and I promised my mom that we would not quit as long as she had a fight in her. And she fought incredibly until it reached a point that she wasn't able to fight. When we moved my mom into hospice on Tuesday, when it was a struggle, the nurse that helped put the initial medicine to relax my mom said, look, your mom's got a lot of challenges. I don't know if she'll make 2 to 4 hours, but she's an incredible fighter. I didn't think that she would be here as many days as she was. And my mom was really, really struggling. And for any child that sees your parents struggling, and I went through this with my dad and to see with my mom, and for me, does have some triggers. When your parent has a oxygen on a high level and they're begging you for water just to moisten their lips, and you're told that you really shouldn't do that because they've got fluid in their lungs, that's hard. That's really, really hard. So when my mom moved to hospice, they said she'd be there probably 2 to 4 hours. 25 hours later, this woman that had everything removed that was keeping her alive other than oxygen, I think just wanted one more day before she would go and reunite with my dad. And my mom passed away yesterday about 5:30, late afternoon. And I'm the lucky one. For 59 years, she was part of my life. And my mom was going to be 89 this fall, and we should all be so lucky to live. And I have much to celebrate about my mom. And even in her passing, she reminded me of many things about the importance of family, about the importance of your kids, about how you treat people, and that cancer sucks. And just like many of you listening to me, and Chris can relate, when you lose a parent, it's hard, and it's not easy. People say focus on the positive. I have millions and millions of memories that are positive of my mom that I will drown in. Um, but you know, today was hard. It's the first day I woke up in my life. My mom's not here, but I'm grateful that I got 59 years of her in my life. And even though my dad's been gone for 7 years, my brother's been gone for 13 years. Man, my mom outlived a child, which is painful. I learn. So, like on Fridays when we end the show for the week and I say do something kind for somebody who doesn't expect it, I'm reminded of that because it's the life lessons that our parents teach us. And while we're not perfect and we're all flawed, we try to be the best that we can. Um, I'm sometimes reminded by that. So I miss my mom today and I'll miss her every day, just like many of you are without your parents and you miss them too. And if you haven't spoken to your parents or you haven't spoken to a loved one, then call them and tell them you love them because there's going to come a day that you won't get to do that. So I know where my mom is today and probably yelling at my dad to get the dishes ready because she's made dinner and so forth. And that puts a smile on my face. No joke of the day today. We'll bring the humor back tomorrow. We'll pivot and jump into the Thursday show next.
He's the voice you trust for the teams you love. You're listening to Marc Daniels and the Beat of Sport.
Going to talk to Brett McMurphy on 3 in just a second. This Thursday edition of our program.
I do want to read a text real quick.
Yeah.
If I may.
Yeah.
Epic Mark, thanks for sharing. Lost my father in 2016. My mom turns 95 tomorrow.
Oh, happy
Your
birthday.
words hit hard for me.
Yeah. They're parents, man. They're we have ups and downs, and relationships sometimes can be hard, but man, they're your parents. So, bless 95, man. That's, like I said, I'm the lucky one. My mom was 88 years old, and to have her in my life as long as I had her in my life, I'm the fortunate one, and I know many, Chris was telling me before, a couple of years since his mom passed, and, you never stop caring about him. And today, it's hard. Woke up, it's the first day my mom's not in my life. So, but what a fighter. Just somebody that impacted so many people. And, Chris, you said, 2 years Saturday from your mom?
2 years Saturday since my mom passed.
It's just something special about moms. No easy way to pivot. Let's do so. Brett McMurphy, one of the best in college football covering the sport. Find his work at On3. He's on X or Twitter at Brett_McMurphy. If you allow me to get to the judge ruling eligibility stuff later, is that okay? Or did something happen in the last hour that now guys from the 2012 class are eligible? I don't know. Hard to keep up.
How about we don't even talk about it?
Yeah.
How about that?
Okay, let's do that. You have a piece on Art Briles, which I read, I find interesting. I think he's polarizing on many levels, and I'm just curious before we do a deeper dive. There seems to be a very strong group of supporters for Briles. They may be in the minority, but he has his defenders that are out there. What's your thoughts on both sides of the Art Briles personality?
Yeah, you're right, Mark. And, I'd been wanting to write this for the past probably 4 or 5 years, and had reached out to Art numerous times, and he'd say, let me think about it. And then time passes, and that goes. And so then finally, when he got to Eastern New Mexico, I reached out to their athletic director and said, hey, can you talk to Art? And so finally he agreed. The first thing when I wrote this, I had no intention to reinvestigate what did or did not happen at Baylor. Okay. That's been reported. People have their own opinions on that, kind of like you mentioned with Art. But you're right. The reason I wanted to do it is literally everybody in all walks of life can get another chance, no matter what they do. We see all the things that happen with NFL players, NBA players, politicians. Everyone gets another chance, except for whatever reason Art Briles had not. And he had a couple of colleges, Southern Miss and Grambling, and then the CFL, that actually had hired him. They had approved it. They had hired him. But then when they announced it, the pushback was so strong on social media that they basically said, you know what, we're not going to do this. We're going to go in another direction. And so that kind of always struck me. Again, all you can go by is what people tell you. And I kind of viewed this as, before I even started writing this story, I knew, and I'm not trying to persuade anybody to like him or dislike him, but I knew if you liked Art Briles, you would like the story. If you didn't like Art Briles, you wouldn't like the story, and that's fine. But his son, Kendall, obviously biased, said the people that know Art know what he's like, know what he's about. The people that don't know him just believe the headlines. And I believe that to an extent, but it is, like you said, Mark, so polarizing because people are that may not have anything to do with Baylor, may not have anything to do with Art Briles, but by God, they've got an opinion on this where they either love the guy or they think he's the devil. And that just, that was one of the reasons I wanted to do the story, and just kind of all the things he's had to go through to get back into the game where he's, basically in the like I wrote, it's not the middle of nowhere, but you can see it from there. And he's at a D2 school, because that's basically the only place in America at the college level that would take a chance on him.
Brett McMurphy's with us on 3, 10 o'clock hour, WY, Orlando, WJR, HD2, Cocoa Beach. For those that haven't yet read or may not, tell them exactly what East New Mexico State football is. I cannot imagine there's a big NIL budget there.
Oh, they don't have NIL. Yeah. I asked that question. No NIL. It's in Portales, New Mexico, which is halfway between Lubbock, Texas, and Roswell, New Mexico. It's a nice place, but if you've ever been to West Texas or New Mexico, or you can imagine what the landscape looks like. They don't charter. They've got a game in a Lone Star Conference foe. Western Oregon is in the Lone Star Conference.
Of course it is. Yeah.
Of course. Yeah, well, realignment. Come on. No charter planes. They are taking a non-direct flight on Southwest to go to that game. They bust all their other games, and yeah, it's what you would expect. I was out there, a couple of days of practice. He's running a lot of the stuff he ran at Baylor. It's a different level, but he says he enjoys it because it reminds him of high school, kind of, in that you got the players that you've got, and you make the best out of them. It's not like the college level now where you can sign a guy to come in and fill a hole like that and do all the different things that are going on at the FBS level. So, yeah, he's jacked up. The athletic director, call him crazy or call him a genius. Art's got $140,000 salary, which, maybe on the high end at that level. I don't know. But the AD has a $2 million buyout, to which I said, why do you have a $2 million buyout? And he goes, because after 1 year, I think this will cleanse him in the eyes of those that are opposed to him, and that a Power 4 school will try to hire him. And if they do, we want to get $2 million for him.
Do you believe that?
I was fine with that.
I mean, do you think that's the case?
Well, I don't know. I know this. ADs and schools are desperate enough. They'll do anything. I did reach out to 7 athletic directors when I did this story and asked them just very simply, if you guys we're in the position to hire either a head coach or an offensive coordinator, would you consider Briles next year? 3 said yes, 4 said no. So not a scientific study, but I do think if you would ask people that question 10 years ago, it would have been 0 said yes and 7 said F no.
Yeah.
So again, time not heals everything, but changes everything. And then, if they have some monster year and then people kind of look at it. And again, I'm not trying to sound like I'm trying to sway people this way or that way. The Pepper Hamilton report came out. Briles was fired. The president was fired. The AD resigned. A year later, the Baylor General Counsel put out a statement, basically exonerated Briles. Said he did nothing wrong. He had no knowledge of this. He didn't play any players that had been involved in any sexual assault issues. And whether it means anything or not, the NCAA also said that he didn't violate any NCAA rules, although they did write in their comments that, there were things maybe that could have been done differently. So again, you can look at that and say, well, what did he really do? Or you can look at the other side and say, well, that doesn't tell the whole picture. And again, I'm not trying to convince people, but again, it's like you said, Mark, I can't remember anybody else that really has never been able to have another chance, like in any walk of life. It's great.
Yeah, I think the timing of the story and the Me Too movement made it a big story outside the sports world, and I don't know if that plays a factor in this.
You're exactly. His athletic director said that.
Yeah, there's no question.
when he told me that, I thought, oh boy, this will go over big.
Yeah.
Yeah. But he said it. He said we were in a different time in our country. We were in a different place then.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't excuse whatever he may have been a part of. I just think that story also added. And look, I got to know briefly when Jeff Levy was at UCF, and the tree of Art Briles has some talented coaches. Whatever you think he did, his coaching tree is pretty talented, and nobody would touch Jeff. Nobody would touch Jeff Levy.
Yeah. I talked to Jeff.
Yeah.
And Art talked about that, and I said, "Are you happy at least that you're Jeff and Kendall, his son, weren't impacted like you were?" And he like bowed up, and he's like, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Jeff had to go to Southeastern, college or whatever in Lakeland.
Yeah.
Kendall had to drop down to Conference USA and at FAU or something. So, yeah, they had to start all over too. So, but yeah, Jeff is very outspoken about his father-in-law and and it was weird because I always thought, well, if Art, supposedly was guilty of all this stuff, then why did the assistant coaches basically skate? That kind of always, I never really understood that either.
Give me a little nugget, and I'll encourage people to read the piece at on3.com about the Fiesta Bowl against UCF, because the Texas job, it's the dream job. He's a high school legend. And that offense, you remember, was thought to be, if not the best offense ever, maybe before LSU came along in 2019, but that offense was thought to be one of the best ever. And you're thinking he's going to win. They're going to go undefeated. He's going to go to Texas, the high school coaches, and he's set for a dynastic run. They lose to UCF, and he chooses to stay. Talk about what might be one of the great what-ifs of college football.
Yeah, UCF, the butterfly effect, I guess. They, whether it was good or bad for Texas, we will never know. But Art told me that he was 100% set to leave Baylor and accept a 6-year deal to Texas. Texas officials wanted to fly to Phoenix before the game, and he said, "No, I'm not doing that." He's like, "Look, I need to play this game. We need to do this." And they play the game, and then they're like, "Hey, we'll come get you." And he's like, "I'm not coming." They're like, "What?" And he said, "No, I'm not coming. I still got unfinished business here." And I asked him, like, are you crazy? Like, Texas is, and you laid it out perfectly for a high school coach, but it is arguably the best job in America with resources and everything. If it's not the best, it's in the top 3.
Well, it's great, as you know, if the high school coaches get behind you. And at the time, he would have had every high school coach behind him because he was one of them.
Right. And he said, look, we beat Texas 3 of the last 4 years. I had no reason to believe that wouldn't continue. We were doing great in recruiting, and it's weird. Coaches, sometimes they're like that. And, if Baylor wins that game over UCF, then he goes to Texas, and who knows what happens at Texas? Who knows, what then would have happened with Baylor? And then another, doing this story, I learned so much. I thought I knew a lot. I didn't know anything, like most subjects. But I did find this out. He recruited Cody Campbell, who's now the Texas Tech board chair and mega booster at Texas Tech. When he was an assistant at Texas Tech, he recruited Cody Campbell to Texas Tech. Campbell obviously went to Texas Tech. If Briles doesn't successfully recruit Campbell and he goes somewhere else, just think how different Texas Tech is. If you don't have all that money of Cody Campbell, so a lot of things that Briles impacted with,
he impacted the oil industry, Brett, is what he did.
Yeah, exactly. The future of America. Yeah. But UCF, hang the banner. You kept Art Briles from going to Texas.
Do you think that Art believes that there is one more big run, or is this just a chance to coach without the noise and it's all about coaching? Or do you think he feels, hey, 1 or 2 years here and I can get right back in the game?
Well, he's 70 years old, and as he said, there's not a lot in the 7-0 club. And I said, well, you got Belichick and Kirk Ferentz, and then I named a couple of, Kyle Whittingham and Keeler at Temple, and they're like, no, they don't count. Those guys are pups. They're in their 60s. From talking to those close to Art, I think he would relish the chance to do that. I do really believe that is not a goal of his. Like, I don't think he said, I'm going to go to Eastern New Mexico and do a great job, and then I'm going to go to, fill in the blank, Power 4 conference school.
Right.
But if he gets offered, now suddenly, now you start thinking. And obviously at 70, I don't think he's looking to coach another 10 years. Heck, I'd be surprised if he goes another 5. His deal at Eastern is for 2 years with an option for a 3rd year. But you never know. He just wants to coach. And I had a lot of people close to him. He wanted to go out on his terms. Like, he wants to, whether it's at Eastern New Mexico or whether he goes somewhere in a couple of years or not. And then also, which will be, talk about polarized. So because he's coaching now, he's not eligible for the College Football Hall of Fame because he's an active coach. But once he's done coaching, he will be eligible for the College Football Hall of Fame because his winning percentage is high enough. He's coached enough years and all that. So the tricky part is you got to have a school nominate you. Well, I'm pretty sure Baylor's not going to nominate him. I don't know if Houston would, but Eastern New Mexico could nominate him for the College Football Hall of Fame. So that'll be, fascinating to see what happens with that. Obviously, this year Mike Leach is going to get in, which is great. They tweaked the winning percentage to let him get in, but yeah, I'm sure there'll be a lot more interest in Eastern New Mexico this year than ever before.
I'm going to end with this, and I'll throw this scenario. You probably have thought about it because you're smart, but I'm also throw this at my good friend David Smoke, who you know as well out there.
Oh yeah,
East New Mexico State is a good year, and Dave Aranda goes 5-7. It takes one person like Smoke or somebody to write a story that says bring him back.
Yeah, I actually did 40 minutes with Smokey yesterday. So
yeah.
And you know what, Mark? I would even put it this way: it doesn't even take one person to write that article.
Yeah,
it takes one donor,
right,
that has a great deal of influence.
Yep.
To decide we're going to do this.
Yep.
And I mean, anything's possible. And nothing against Dave Aranda, but you open the dictionary and look up the word hot seat, and I guess they don't publish dictionaries anymore. But if they did, his picture would be right there next to Mike Norvell.
We shall see. Brett's piece is up at on3.com. If you go to Brett_McMurphy on X or Twitter, you can get the link to it. Check out that and everything else Brett covers. We're not doing any college eligibility stuff, so I'm going to end it there. Thanks for the time. I appreciate it. We'll talk during the season. Thank you.
Anytime, Mark. Thank you.
Brett McMurphy on the interesting, polarizing figure that is Art Briles. And I'm not trying to stir something, but today in college football, you give Baylor fans another frustrating year, and Brett's right. It takes one big donor that rallies the other donors that go, hey, let's bring it back. And all of a sudden you're like, well, it's been a while. It's been a decade, so yeah, that's all it takes. That's all it takes. Yeah. Yeah. Nothing can surprise you in college football anymore, so don't let it surprise you in college football. Yeah.
That was such a big scandal 10 years
ago. It was
a
big scandal, and it may sound like to some, and I read Brett is not trying to defend Art Briles. What Brett's piece says is you can go read and judge for yourself. I'm just telling you, this is what Art Briles believes. This is what the report said. So it may sound like, Brett's acting as if nothing happened. Something happened. The question is what Briles should have known. What should he have done when presented with evidence? And did he pull the old, hey, until guilty, innocent, otherwise, and so forth? And that's the gray area. And sometimes the timing of it leads to what could be a scarlet letter, which is why I don't think Art Briles got another chance for quite some time. And East New Mexico State, I'm not quite sure counts as another chance. And I'm not quite sure they'll have a very good season. They have very limited resources, and they've won, I think, 8 games in the last 3 years.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think they've lost 22 of their last 30.
Yeah. The Texas thing is incredible. It is incredible because he was a high school legend coach in Texas. And if he takes the job the way that state runs, my God, what they could have done with him having his pick of every quarterback, running back, wide receiver, lineman, and so forth, then you're telling me the loss to UCF made him feel like I need to come back? Now, he did tell his team he expected 10 touchdowns on 10 drives and put up 70 on UCF. Of course, he forgot to tell his team to play defense in that game. As UCF ran him down the throat. Now, Leary said, wait till we punch him in the mouth early. Run it down that throat. And he did. Kept handing the ball off, and Storm Johnson running right down the middle of the field. Of course, the night before, Jerry O'Neal wanted to go to the Baylor Hotel and kick Art Briles' ass, but that's a different story.
I don't think I know this one.
Oh, come on.
I don't think I do.
The media dinner
Mhm.
was at the amazing Camelback Marriott Resort, which to me is one of the most scenic places to be on an afternoon where there's not a cloud in the sky with the Camelback Mountain there and everything. And it you have to ask Mike Bianchi because Mike was out there covering for the Sentinel. I've never seen more steak and lobster being begged to eat and jumbo shrimp or your stuff rolled out of there. And O'Neal may, emphasis on may, have taken advantage of the open bar. And when I say May, I mean like the month of May if you drank every day. And when we got into the van to drive back to the hotel, he insisted on finding the Baylor Hotel because he wanted to go kick Art Briles' ass. And he meant it. With the drink to go. We went back to the hotel. Yeah. Would you like me to text you the picture of O'Neal the morning of the game?
Oh, please do.
Oh yeah, I'll send it to you.
Please do. I'd love to grab a drink with Jerry O'Neal one day. Does he still drink?
No. Well, I don't think. No, not anymore.
Okay.
No Cam Mellor today. He had a event that he had to get to, so we'll hook up with Cam next week. He gets set for week 0. A little bit more college football coming up in about 20 minutes. A little bit more of that whole eligibility story, and a little bit of a view about the Knights for the upcoming year, which I think is an important one. We'll get to that. But up next, maybe it was just about a little bit of cash and someone who predicted what might happen to this guy next.
We're marching down the field, and Marc Daniels is calling the plays. Welcome back to the Beat of Sports.
Big thanks to Frontiera Cucina came by earlier today. They celebrated their 10th anniversary down at Disney Springs. Whew, that was some good stuff. Good Mexican food that they brought by. All part of the wonderful list of restaurants and top chefs and beverage experts that'll be at Taste Central, Florida, August 28th at the World Center Marriott, presented by Edward Jones. You go to tastecfl.org, tastecfl.org for tickets and all the information. And 100% of the proceeds benefit Second Harvest Food Bank of Central Florida and the Coalition for the Homeless of Central Florida. Thanks to Frontera Cucina for coming by. It was good stuff, huh?
Oh, I had 2 tacos and rice and guac. Oh, so good.
Yeah, fresh guac is really fresh. Like you go to some place, you can tell, like, okay, this has been sitting in a fridge for 8 hours because someone made it this morning and so forth. But it was good. Yeah, the food was really good.
Very good. Fantastic.
Little plantains and the rice there was really, really nice. Can I play a clip a couple days ago? The great Ira Kaufman, who covers the Bucks and has done so for years, and for a number of years has been writing at Joe Bucks Fan. Ira was on the show, and in vintage Ira, I asked him about Vita Vea, and here's what Ira said a few days ago.
I don't think it's crazy to give the guy some more money this year. Don't extend him. Let's see what happens. Because, Mark, I don't know if you're like me, but I think this is a kind of a wait and see with the Glazers this year. They went backwards last year. You can't start 6-2 in a bad division and not make the playoffs. I mean, that's not easy. Mayfield didn't play well down the stretch. The defense was awful. And so I think they're giving it one more shot. They brought in a lot of 30-year-old guys, 31-year-old. That's not usually what Jason Light does. So that tells me that they're going to give this one more shot, and I think Vea is going to be part of it. They got some depth up front, but, Vea, just by tying up 2 blockers, he's got value just doing that.
Chris, Ira was right.
It made me look bad too. I think Vita Vea was taking a snap for the Bucks this season.
They just give him a little bit more money, which the Bucks have apparently done, about $6 million, and $30 million if he meets all the numbers there. The second year's really not guaranteed throwaway. And they got it done.
Yeah. Oh, it's amazing how you can get things done. Yes, he was skipping practices or I guess holding in, as they call it now. But there was no real drama. They were able to work things out. Took a little bit of time, but it's done. Vita Vea will be back. So things can work out.
Well, yeah. How you get from point A to Z is interesting because several things can be true here.
Mm-hmm.
As a veteran, you don't need to make it a distraction, which he didn't.
Nope.
Okay, he was there, made a big deal because a couple of days he wasn't wearing Buck shirts, things like that. And maybe his agent and he did demand a trade and said, look, I don't think we can get this done here. That's all part of negotiations. The Bucks had no obligation to trade him. And maybe the Bucks said, let's go find out what the market is. And maybe the Bucks didn't like what the market was. Maybe there weren't as many takers as they thought there would be. Although several reports of the Bills and Bears among interested teams, 2 very interesting spots if he goes to.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the end, maybe the Bucks said, look, we got this in the back pocket, which is we can bring him back more money or come back with more money. And maybe the Bucks exhausted everything going, hey, what's the trade? What are the scenarios? And maybe the Bucks looked at 3 different deals. One really attractive, one, well, they're like, no way. And you're like, okay, do we pull this one out and see if he takes the additional money? And what does that mean? We can sit here today and say he's not playing next year for them.
Mm-hmm.
But as you and I discussed, I don't think the Bucks at the moment know about next year. A lot's going to depend on this year.
Yep.
And maybe Vita Vea was like, you know what? I didn't want to partake in camp, so I'll take the $6 million. I'll get the money here, and I'll get back, work out a little bit, and be ready to go for week 1.
And you know what? I should have known. Usually when guys request a trade, what do? They scrub their social medias of their current team. I didn't hear anything of Vita Vea scrubbing the Bucks from his Instagram or Twitter. I don't even know if he's got a Twitter. But there's no scrubbing of social media of Buccaneers anything.
Yeah,
so I should have known he was coming back.
Sometimes you can act like adults and
Not in today's world.
but sometimes you just act like adults. And by the way, one of the solutions may have been to trade him,
Mhm.
but in the end,
Good for them.
I don't
Tom.
think the Bucks feel like, man, he's missed time. Whatever, he's fine. It's good.
He's been around long enough.
Yeah.
He'll be all right.
Yeah. And in the end, there you go.
I still don't think they win this division though.
Because you're on the bandwagon of the
Carolina Panthers.
Okay. With what record?
It's going to be either 8-9, 9-8.
Mm-hmm. Want a 7-10 division winner so bad.
While going winless in the division.
Well, you know that. I want someone to hang a flag at their stadium as a division champion, going 0-6, but winning the division. That would be the greatest flag ever being raised. Yeah. But that flag up there, division champ, 7-10. Oh no, I mean I want you to go. The dream is for someone to go 11-6 and go 0-6 in a division. That's what I want.
And hang the division banner title.
Right. Or 7-10 and going 0-6 in the division. Yeah. The team finishes second in the division, goes 6-0. You go 0-6, but you win the division. That's the best. And you know as well as I do, if that crazy scenario ever happened, there would be this, hey, we got to change this. I'm not saying we would, but it'd be like, okay, that doesn't make sense. Like to me, you don't have to wait till it happens to realize that the scheduling model of determining conference champions of division champions is flawed. But we're going to wait until it actually happens. That someone goes 0-6.
Should the NFL abandon divisions and just go conferences?
Well, in theory, yes, but because rivalries are so important,
You can still have rivalries even without divisions.
But optically, like you and I optically look at Washington, Philadelphia, and Dallas, like they have rivals, and no sport does it better. No sport does it better. I mean, I'm convinced in a few years, whenever Major League Baseball is done looking at renderings of the Rays ballpark and they do a sign expansion, boy, that crap yesterday, that we're going to get a complete realignment shift in baseball. Yeah.
Still keeping the 3 divisions in each league?
Yeah, but I think you'll see more regional stuff. Like, I think the Yankees and Red Sox are setting it up. I think the Yankees and Red Sox may be part of a division with the Phillies. Yeah.
Mets going there too?
Who cares about? No. Yeah, possibly. Sure. Mets, Phillies, Yankees, Red Sox.
Blue Jays? You want to talk regional?
Yeah.
Would you put them in the Central?
And then probably Baltimore and Washington. But I think that's likely to happen in baseball. Where in the National Football League, I'm not quite sure. I mean, the only reason why the Cowboys made the East, you know this, right?
I've heard the story.
TV market.
Yeah.
The Cowboys' value of playing the other Eastern dominant cities of New York, Philadelphia, and Washington made it a really big deal. And after Jerry bought the team, they thought about doing it again. He was like, over my dead body. And they're like, how long is that going to be?
Well, I mean, where would you put them?
Who?
The Cowboys. Would you put them in the AFC West?
Well, if you left him in the NFC, you could put him in the South.
Over what? I guess the Panthers?
Or the West. I mean,
you'd move the Panthers?
Whatever. It's not happening. And I plan on being around a while. The Cowboys will not leave the NFC East. Zero chance. I'm telling you, it's zero chance that Dallas ever leaves the NFC East. And it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Makes no sense.
Can I ask you?
There's no other team that's an outlier like that. Yes.
Can I ask you a scheduling question that I've thought about bringing up on the mark, off the mark?
Yeah.
Instead of doing the 2 divisions and then I guess now we do 3 random games every year, what if they did 2 from one division, 2 from another, 2 from another, to kind of make up those 8 additional games instead of just 2 divisions? Does that make sense?
Oh, instead of having you're playing everybody in the NFC South next year?
Yeah.
I don't know. There's a reason for why they do it the way that they do it. I
How about
mean,
you get like more
the NFL
random?
schedule, I mean, you can find the model. It's just when they play the games. By the time you get to week 16 of this year, you know next year's schedule.
Mhm.
So that's
I think you know pretty much who you're playing
Yeah.
a couple years in advance. It's
Yeah.
just obviously the random games
right.
based on where you land in the division or in the standings.
We come back, a little bit of college football, the insanity yesterday that may lead to NFL players going back to college. And it's a final scrimmage tonight for UCF. And why I do think this season is important kind of for the future. I'll explain next.
No prevent defense can stop this rhythm. You're locked into the beat of sports with Marc Daniels.
Thank yesterday Chris and Kelly and also Scott Harris who called in during the show yesterday on short notice. I'm not able to do yesterday's show. I was down in South Florida. I shared the news earlier. My mom passed away yesterday. And I got back last night. So, Chris, yesterday, got to try to put a smile on your face, okay? In the hospital that my mom was at, I've been to so many times over the years, particularly the last month or so. So you got to go in and you got to check in with security, and they give you a pass, sticker. And I've seen this guy at check-in over the months and so forth. And I was wearing a black UCF hoodie, right? And he goes, man, I've seen you come here a lot and so forth. He goes, how long you been a UFC fighter? And I was like, what? Now, mind you, this is, I've been at that hospital now for 20 some odd straight hours. I had to go get something from my car, and during the switch from night, had to get a new pass for the new day. I'm not even listening. I go back up and hand the license and so forth, and he goes, yeah, I see you. How long you been a UFC fighter? I was like, I'm sorry, what? He goes, yeah, I see. You wear UFC stuff all the time. How long you been a fighter? And I'm like, do I look like I fight in UFC? Like do I? I go, it's UCF. Oh. And I'm like, he doesn't even have a clue. I'm like, I'm not going to ask you. Just give me the ID. Let me go in. Yeah. How long you been a fighter? 15, 20 years.
You should have got. Well, you're probably tired not thinking. I would have just gone along with it. Yeah, I fight in the welterweight division.
Yeah. You might have seen me. I fought Conor McGregor last year. So forth.
Made a couple mil. He gave me a couple of his
I've seen
liquor
you.
bottles.
How long you been a fighter? First off, why would you think okay? You could have said, "Are you a fan of UFC?" Why would you think a fighter? Look at me, a fighter. Yeah.
Marc, the sarcastic.
Yeah,
Daniels.
Exactly. Before I do a quick a little thought about UCF, yesterday's latest example of eligibility in college football is a Louisiana judge, the latest. You go judge hunting, said, these 16 guys, they could all play, and it includes a number of guys that are right now at an NFL practice getting set to play their second preseason game. Yeah, getting set to play their second preseason game. Why you're laughing here?
I'm not laughing. I'm annoyed.
And you've got 3 guys, by the way, that played for Ole Miss as starters last year. 3. You've got Jack Pyburn, who had 2 sacks for the Buccaneers in their preseason game last week. And again, let's take Pyburn since he's a Buccaneer.
Mm-hmm.
The Bucs have his rights. He signed with the Bucs $15,000 signing bonus, undrafted.
Mm-hmm.
$15,000 signing bonus and $100,000 guaranteed. Guaranteed.
Mm-hmm.
If he chooses to leave without being released, the Bucs would retain his rights next year. So he can go play somewhere, being All-American, and say, well, he's got a 3rd-round grade, but it doesn't matter. The Bucs own his rights. And then he would say, okay, well, now we'll negotiate. No. He goes back and inherits the contract that he walked out on.
Let me ask you this. Is it, so however long the contract is, does it start from then?
What I understand is all the players in this have on September 1 is the deadline about whether you're playing college football or not. Pyburn will get multiple offers if he hasn't already had offers. And somebody will offer him better than $1 million. Somebody will. And maybe they already know that. Maybe you're saying, well, it's ridiculous. Which part of it is ridiculous?
All of it.
Which part?
All of it. The fact that these NCAA teams are trying to essentially poach kids from the NFL. The fact that these
Whoa,
judges,
whoa. No one's poaching kids from the NFL. These guys went to court, put their name on a lawsuit, found a judge to give them a favorable ruling.
then the fact that these colleges are still going to try and sign these kids.
Okay. The problem that you have, and I'm not saying I'm not in your group, is all schools have to do is just not sign them.
All judges have to do is not allow them to do this.
Well, you're getting judges that are interpreting the law different than you may see it. The problem here lies in if you don't like it, then don't sign them. But college football programs are addicts. Addicts. They are addicted to winning. They're addicts. So they'll let someone else be the good moral Samaritan, and you'll put your foot down and you'll say, we're not signing these guys.
Nobody ever will.
Correct, because you're an addict. And that's why you're going to continue to have this. By the way, Mike Florio put a story out, and he may be fishing on this one. Do you know who could go to court and also win?
What, a third-year NFL player?
Diego Pavia.
I saw that.
That would be a little bit tough, but
why would Diego Pavia's situation be different than guys in the NFL?
Well, Pavia goes back to the whole junior college and what counts. And he already had one court that allowed him to play last year. But I don't even know what the rule is anymore. I have no idea. And forget about chemistry in a locker room. Because think I like Pyburn. You drop him in a locker room now, paying him a 7-figure deal, and guys that have gone through a month of camp are like, so he just drops in? I mean, that's why you got to think about doing it. And some of these guys may not find a home, but got a guy that had carries for the Seahawks this weekend who announced he's in the portal. Like, he just carried for the Seahawks 6 days ago. And he's like, yeah, I'm looking. I'm looking. Yeah.
You entered the NFL draft. You played in a preseason game.
You signed a contract and you played in a preseason game. This isn't like,
how are you able to find a judge to let you back into college?
This isn't like, hey, I entered the draft and I went undrafted. This is, I entered the draft. I may have gone undrafted, but I signed a contract and I played in a preseason game.
So can NFL players can NFL teams then sue for breach of contract?
You might be able to. Like in Pyburn's case, you could fine him. You can fine him and say, hey, we didn't cut him. He left. He went AWOL on us. And we'll fine him.
Well, NFL teams should start doing that then. These kids need to learn that there's consequences.
Let me pivot in a brief thought. Tonight, UCF plays, or UCF has a scrimmage tonight, not open to the public, under the lights. And I think, I said this when Scott Frost got to UCF, and I think in any situation, when a first-year coach comes in, even though Scott's second go-round, you get in late, the portal, all that stuff. I don't know what UCF's record's going to be this year. I don't. I think several things are important. The health of Alonzo Barnett and keeping him upright, which means he's got to stay healthy, and UCF's offensive line has to be average. It hasn't been average in 3 years in the Big 12. It's got to be average, okay? And then a bunch of other things. Like you got to find some road wins. But you got to UCF's got 2 road wins in its Big 12 history in 3 years. But I don't know what's happening in the next several years in college football. I don't believe the SEC is breaking away. I don't believe we're closer to a super league. But I don't know what's going to happen when we get to 2030 and 31 and the media deals, which means by 2028 into 29, you will begin to kind of wonder where we're at. Both on a government side, I don't know. But I do think at some point, UCF's got to jumpstart the brand again. And right now, it's stuck. It is. Nationally, there's no buzz about UCF. You've got to create buzz. And you got to go beat Pitt. You got to be 3-0 when you go into conference play. Then you got to go win some road games. And I'm not saying they got to go 12-0 this year. I'm just saying you got to reestablish a little buzz with your brand. Because each year that passes, you're further removed of 2017 and 18, even though they won double-digit games in 19. You're further removed of that. And by the way, you won, meaning the South Florida comparison. You're in the Power Four. They're begging to get into one of those leagues. But now you've got to create some buzz. And here's how fast it can turn. And I brought this up before, and Chris, like we've talked about it. A Super League 3 years ago would have included Indiana. Huh?
No.
Now it's like, of course. So it can change quickly, but you got to start doing that. Because here's how fast it can change also. Iowa State a couple of years ago. Matt Campbell, he's an NFL candidate for jobs and everything. They're winning games like they never won before. Now he's gone, and they may be the worst team of the Big 12 this year. That's how fast it can change. But they've got to start getting a little bit buzzed. They need Alonzo Barnett to be really good. They need some wins against teams maybe you're not thinking they're supposed to beat. Because you've got to get some momentum where all of a sudden you become on the radar again. And that means winning 8-9 games. That means 9-10. That means starting to be in the hunt. Because if something does happen, and no one knows, whatever anybody tells you, they don't know, but no one knows. But if something does begin to percolate, and that may be, hey, Power 4 breakaway, okay? Make sure, you're saying you're part of that. No, we got this new idea of, we're going to pluck 48 teams. Well, you better make sure you're doing something to justify being part of that. I mean, if the SEC decides to break away, then nothing you do about that. But if there is something there, you got to do something to make you feel good, like, okay, we're good. We're good if something happens. I mean, in 2 years, Kirk Cignetti did that at Indiana. You don't have to win a national championship in 2 years. You just got to get a little bit of buzz. And, okay, the Gus thing didn't work. Scott came in. Last year was last year. Now you got to start putting some wins together. You got to make people go, oh, okay, I see what's happening down there. Because if you don't, and if something does happen down the line in 29 or thinking about 30 and 31, and you start looking at TV deals and stuff, you got to make people go, well, that's a no-brainer. Because look, it's impossible to inherit a history of Ohio State and Texas. Others have been playing football for 150 years. So how you do that is you got to have a run so the timing is right. Just like the timing was right when the Big 12 went to expand and UCF had 2017, 18, and 19 in their back pocket. That's how they get into the Big 12. You got to start getting that buzz again so that if something happens, no one questions, oh, yeah, they're part. They're on the right side. That's why I think 2026 has got to be one that you feel like, hey, there's some momentum building. 11 o'clock hour kicks off with the news next.
Let's really do the news.
Yes. Now it is time to do the news.
But now it's time for the news.
11 o'clock hour, WYGM Orlando, WJR HD2 Cocoa Beach. It's the Beat of Sports. Marc Daniels, Chris Vasquez is over there. Orlando City falls last night 2-1 to Chicago. Midweek MLS action after the Lions tied it up at 1. A match that saw rain delay for 2 hours towards the end of the first half. Robert Lewandowski for Chicago gets penalty kick in the 69th minute, and they win 2-1 over Orlando City. Vita Vea gets a 1-year deal with the Bucks that he signs. If he meets all the numbers, it's $30 million for the upcoming year. A little bit of surprise maybe, but Vita Vea going back with the Buccaneers. Good stuff there.
Made me look bad.
What's that?
Made me look bad.
Last night, Pete Alonso thought he had a game, a tie-breaking home run for the Orioles game against the Yankees. The classic case, the ball goes up, and did it go over the foul pole, around, whatever the call? Call on the field was foul. Replay looked like it was fair. Several different angles, but the call stood. Yankees won the game, and people again question the technology.
Just buying the umps the Yankees are.
Well, what the heck else you want us to do? We got so many guys injured.
It's not Giancarlo's fault.
Running the bases. Week 2 of running the bases. How about Juan Soto? You know, the Mets are actually playing better ball of late, right? Juan Soto says, I'd like to come back, but what's the point? I don't know, the $750 million contract they gave you?
Hey, he's already kicking the can on this season.
Yeah.
Always next season.
And a lot more with that contract that he's got. Yeah, you better believe that. A lot more. Week 2 of the NFL preseason gets underway. We got action tonight. Raiders and Texans. What's that?
Jackson Dart going to take another blast.
Well, tonight's Raiders, Texans, and 49ers and Chargers. The Niners have 23 guys left the roster that are available to play tonight. Two games tonight. The rest of the schedule for the state teams. The Jacks host the Panthers tomorrow night. And then Saturday, busy Saturday schedule with the NFL. Giants and Dolphins and the Chiefs and Buccaneers among the NFL teams doing battle. Formula One, Max Verstappen's going to stay at Red Bull till 2030. If you're an F1 fan like me, it's big news. He's getting a lot of money, and 2, had to get concessions about what they'll do with the car next year. And just had to get stuff. There's no other way he would have signed that deal to go back. And let's see, what else do we have for you? PGA playoffs continue. The BMW championship is underway in St. Louis. And Little League World Series continues with day number 2 of action. That's what's happening in sports. 2 weeks from tonight, by the way, is UCS first football game. 2 weeks from tonight. I'll be out there today. I'm honored. They've asked me to serve as the host of the formal introduction of the tower, or the formal opening of the tower. Kickoff luncheon tomorrow, and then tonight's scrimmage. Going to be in the booth tonight.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Getting some warm-up reps in?
Yes. I haven't worn my prescription glasses since last football game. It's the only time I wear them. So I got to wear them tonight to kind of reestablish my eyes. Because basketball, baseball, baseball, you get the outfield, but it's not as far, and there's only 3 guys in the outfield. But in football, I wear my prescription glasses to see far corners in the opposite side. It's each of the binoculars. And I just realized the other day, I haven't worn them since last November.
Break them in again.
Yeah. And then we get the new booth we'll check out tonight. Yeah. Ben Horning of Front Office Sports going to join us next. Got a whole bunch of things happening in the world of sports business and media, and good to catch up. We'll do that with Ben. Plus, Chris, another great history lesson. I don't think a lot of people know about today's history lesson. And it's a what if. Sometimes those are really fun to do. We're doing what if to a degree with Brett McMurphy about Art Browse if he took the Texas job after the UCF game. I don't know if any people will remember the what if today. It's an NFL what if, and it's a big one. We'll get to that coming up in about 25 minutes on the Beat of Sports.
recommend? I'm fucking tired. Try not to be kidding. Am I right? Just so I didn't waste all my money, would you recommend? When will this recession end? Am I right? Anyway, would you recommend plugging USB? Is this desperate? USB, got my microphone set up. USB into my phone for the phone call for ultra.
You can't spell sports talk radio without Marc Daniels. This is the Beat of Sports.
Every day, the story of Mark Walter gets more bizarre. The sale of the Lakers. People even questioning now where Bob Iger and Josh Kushner got the money. The Dodgers and all the insurance money tied to that and the deferred contracts of all those players. I mean, wow, what a story. The Clippers and their deal with the NBA and all that stuff. Ben Horney covers all this and more for our friends at Front Office Sports. He's got his asset class newsletter, which if you want to do a deeper dive in all this stuff, you can follow him. And he joins us this morning on the stream. Ben, good morning. Welcome back. How are you?
I'm great, Mark. Thanks for having me. Great to be with you.
All right, let's start with the whole Dodger, the whole Laker Dodger story, Mark Walter. There are so many stories going on, Ben. The sports side of it, now even the NBA's come under fire because how did he get the team in the first place? So even dating back to when he purchased the team, people are wondering how it got past the NBA then. Before we even get to the sale here, where people wonder where the money's coming from there, him trying to sell the Dodger TV contract. Let's start first on the NBA side. Where are we on the whole Laker thing?
Yeah, this is a complex, very much actively happening story. So I'll do my best to break down what we know now. So with the Lakers, I mean, it's crazy. So we all know, but just to kind of reiterate, Mark Walter bought the Lakers last year. The deal was announced about 14 months ago. It closed about 10 months ago. And now all of a sudden, last week, he sold the Lakers for at a $12.5 billion valuation. When he bought them, it was at a $10 billion valuation. When he bought the Lakers, you know, it was widely reported and believed that he is one of the richest owners in sports. You look at the Dodgers, how their organization is run, the success they've had. And the idea was he's going to bring this right over to the Lakers. And all of a sudden, they're going to go from kind of a mom and pop style shop, which is how the Lakers were run under the Buss family, to like the Dodgers. Again, fast forward a year, and there are all of these questions surrounding Mark Walter. How rich actually is he? Is he going to be in trouble? There's a lot going on.
The bus side of it is fascinating as well. But I guess, Ben, here's my question. Why were there not red flags here? I mean, did the NBA do due diligence? I mean, there's some really good reporters, people at your place in Front Office Sports and others out there that now have dug and found out just the pyramid that he's got of these shell companies and what he's done with life insurance. Why was this not part of the due diligence here?
Yeah, I mean, look, that's a great question that, you know, a lot of us are asking. I will say that what supposedly is happening here, let me quickly just try to break that down because it's not so easy to understand. So he has Guggenheim Partners. He has TWG Global. Those are investment firms. Those firms own a variety of companies, including these life insurance companies, Delaware Life and ClearSpring. What happened here is that he was his companies were using policyholder funds from the people who have life insurance policies, me and you, whoever has insurance policies through that, they were using those funds for other investments, potentially for things like the Dodgers and the Lakers. Now, here's the thing. That's not illegal on its face necessarily. The issue is that they reported a number of the so-called affiliated investments that was far below what was actually happening. And at some point over the last year, federal investigators caught on to that fact and started looking into it, which is what has led us to today, where his companies have now restated their filings and they said, hey, I know that we previously reported there was $1.4 billion worth of these affiliated investments where we're using policyholder funds for other investments. It was actually more like $17 billion. So that is all a long-winded explanation to say that the underlying activity isn't necessarily illegal. Now, it's possible there was some shady business going on, but that might be part of the answer to why, let's say, the NBA didn't catch on or other people didn't catch on, because the idea is that policyholder funds are these long-term investments. You're not expecting that you're going to need to pay them out for a long time. So this does happen throughout the industry. The question is, was Mark Walter doing very shady business with it? And why was he not reporting the level? That's kind of the key question here.
But he's scrambling now, trying to sell a stake in Chelsea. The reports about him literally offering the TV partners the right for an early exit to buy, which is incredible because the TV deal is back to the last time the Dodgers went through bankruptcy. And so he's scrambling here. I mean, clearly he's in panic mode, which makes the Dodgers in question. What happens there?
Yeah, it's interesting. So, yesterday, I think it was Ramona Shelburne reported that, the Dodgers are not for sale, but if unsolicited offers were to come in, they would potentially listen. Now, to me, and I'm trying to talk to people about this, to me, that screams someone saying, hey, go ahead and feel free to make some unsolicited offers, because that appears to be what happened with the Lakers. It kind of was just out of nowhere. Bob Iger and Josh Kushner are buying the Lakers. So yeah, he seems to be in this fire sale mode. He's trying to raise cash. He's potentially trying to figure out if he can stay out of trouble on this. It's not clear, even if he were to raise an adequate amount of money to kind of cover maybe all of the amounts that they didn't originally report or whatever it is, it's not clear that that's going to get him out of trouble. I mean, it's possible that what his firm did was illegal. And one other point here that is very interesting, and I'm writing a story about this, it will come out later today. This is not new for Mark Walter. Back in 2014, his companies were sued in federal court, and the lawsuit alleged like identical things to what's happening now. And the lawsuit claimed that they used these funds to buy the Dodgers and they didn't disclose it. So that's going back, over 10 years ago. They settled, or that case was resolved after like one day. And now here we are, fast forward 12 years, and it seems like they're still doing the same exact thing.
We could spend a long time on the Lakers, because then you got to find out exactly where Bob Iger and Josh Kushner's money coming from, and that's a story in itself. The Clippers across the street seem to have their own issues, although I don't know. The report that the NBA denies about they can't find anything wrong about what Steve Ballmer did, and then there's the thought Steve Ballmer is the richest owner, and he can take anybody on. Where are we with the Clippers? Because Ben, that was quick for the league to go, hey, that story's not true. And I think some of the NBA was ticked that got out.
That was pretty fascinating. There was both the NBA and the Clippers issued statements basically refuting the reporting. I mean, from what I have been told, the law firm investigation, which, the NBA hired this law firm, Wachtell Lipton, that it's been some time. I mean, this is out there. It's been some time that they have basically been finished with their investigation. At a certain point within the last few months, they essentially handed over to the NBA. Here are our findings. Now it's up to the NBA to decide what to do. It's not the law firm. So, I think what that ESPN story hit at, and what is similar to what I've heard, is that the NBA is now trying to figure out what resolution can be acceptable. Adam Silver, who's the one who ultimately is going to hand down any punishment, works for the owners. Steve Ballmer is, the richest owner in the NBA, so they don't necessarily want, to put some big punishment on him. And then the last piece there, that again, this is, just what I've heard, so I can't 100% say it's fact, but you hear that, maybe not to the level of what was happening with Kawhi Leonard, But these sorts of things go on around the league. I mean, teams introducing players to sponsors and then them getting deals, how involved or not involved it might be. I think the other teams aren't really gung ho about, bringing the hammer down on some behavior that maybe everyone is kind of doing.
Listen, I love my Knicks. I still have a hard time believing Jalen Brunson was so kind to the hometown Knicks, if you know what I mean. Liv is falling apart. A lot of reports about guys that are trying to crawl their way back to the PGA Tour. I think Scotty Scheffler and Rory enjoyed the pre-tournament press conference before the BMW event going on for the playoffs to kind of make some of those guys grovel a little bit. What do you know? I mean, Liv's got issues, not paying vendors, canceling a team event. Guys like Rahm and others that are begging to get back. Where are we at? And will it be easy for these guys to get back? Some people think, hey, whatever Brooks Koepka did, that's what these guys got to do. And I don't know. I mean, I tend to think there's some guys in the PGA Tour, and Ben, share your thoughts. They look at John Rahm and say, Daddy, you took $300 million. Okay. I don't think the $25 million charity and apology is going to work.
Well, so the PGA Tour did, I think it was a few months ago, outline kind of some of the steps that will be taken. There is a penalty if you come back to the PGA Tour from Liv. If things don't seem great for Liv, I mean, Scott O'Neill is trying to portray it as though they do have kind of financial backing that's going to come and help the league come up, but they seem to be in some pretty, in some pretty hot water here. I mean, obviously with the Saudi Public Investment Fund pulling back on funding from them, from the reporting, it seems like they're looking into a private credit deal with this firm called BC Partners. But to your point, I think a lot of the players are now going, okay, well, why would we stick around with this? It's no longer backed by PIF. We want to go back to the PGA Tour. I do think the PGA Tour is feeling very good about how this is all going down. I mean, they were fighting a, very hot lawsuit before they ultimately claimed that they were going to reach some kind of deal a few years back. Obviously, that deal's not happening anymore. I think the PGA Tour kind of waited, Live out. I think that, the Saudi backers realized, well, I don't know how much money we can keep pouring into this thing forever. And maybe we should redirect our efforts elsewhere, especially obviously given the geopolitical issues going on in the Middle East. So there are more questions than answers is what I would say about Liv right now.
Hey, one last one. And I saw you responded. My good friend Daniel Wallach, who covers the sports gaming world, posted something on prediction markets. I know you wrote about that in the past, and I saw you retweet back to him. It is interesting to watch this gray area that leagues and teams are trying to deal with because the money is so good from a Kalshi or Poly market that it's so tempting to take, and yet there's lawsuits all over the place, and yet the addiction to the sponsorship side is there. How big's the gray area, or is it, hey, you know what, we'll take the money until someone tells us we can't take it?
So, my sense is it's the latter thing that you said. I think the leagues, there's a similar thing going on to when daily fantasy sports first burst onto the scene. It was the leagues want to take a tactful approach. They don't want to seem like they're jumping for the money. Now, the NHL did it very early. Last October, they announced both Kalshi and Polymarket as partners. We don't know the financials of that, although I've been told it was not to the level of the MLB deal with Polymarket, which sources told me was $300 million over 4 years. The holdouts right now are the NBA and the NFL. Hopefully within the next few weeks, we'll have a story on the state of talks with the NBA, but it seems like people think that there's going to be some kind of partnership there, or potentially multiple partnerships before this upcoming season starts, which is soon. Everyone kind of agrees the NFL will be the last holdout, but they will eventually do it. Another interesting kind of point that I've been told on that is that a lot of these agreements seemingly have clauses that are not very uncommon, but if this goes to the Supreme Court and the Supreme Court says, hey, these sports event contracts, they're illegal, this all has to be regulated under state law, leagues and teams that have entered partnerships might have an out. So I don't think that they're all going to wait until it's all resolved. I think they're going to eventually take the money, and we're expecting next year, the earliest, is when this will get to the Supreme Court.
Ben's on X or Twitter at Ben Horney, Horney. Please check out also his asset class newsletter if you enjoy the deep dive into some of the money stories in sports. And good grief, there's so much of them with this Lakers story.
It's coming. Asset class.
Yeah. Please check it out. Thanks, Ben. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Mark. Always good talking to you.
Ben Horney with deep insight on a lot of this stuff. Yeah, the latest thing is, and I forget what the first story, but some really good people have done a deep dive. Now they've uncovered all the life insurance stuff that Mark Walter's done, and it's a question that everybody should have asked. Okay, oh wow, Bob Iger and a Kushner's buying the Lakers. Like they don't have $12 billion. Like yeah, Bob Iger made a lot of money. He doesn't have billions of dollars, and they find out, oh, that's where maybe coming from, huh? Oh, they're building a new Disney World in Abu Dhabi. Oh, he's good friends with, and now you're like, oh, so who's buying the Lakers? Are those guys buying the Lakers? Because Iger and Kushner don't have $12 billion. Mark Walter will not own the Dodgers in 6 months. There is a zero chance of that. Zero chance he owns the Dodgers. I don't know who will, but he will not be part of the ownership of the Dodgers in 6 months.
Are you surprised? And I don't know, maybe I don't know how these things work. Are you surprised he's not trying to flee the country at this point? Because this seems like pretty major
No,
penalties
because I think he believes apparently it's $20 billion he's got to come up with in
by
what is
December,
it?
right?
Yeah, yeah. I think he feels like he'll get the number. And here's the official Daniels disclaimer. I don't care about your politics. I think he knows he's got an ace in the hole if he can bring to the table enough dollars that someone can persuade his
press.
Department of Justice to work with him.
Like if he comes up with say 15 to 18.
Oh, I don't know what the number is, but I think.
But I'm saying, example, he comes up with 15 to 18. Someone can either forgive or cover the rest.
I think they feel that there's enough. Now that doesn't mean he can keep ownership of the. I mean, baseball owners can choose to say, "Dude, no way," and I people will continue to dig. It's going to get worse for him because people would be shocked to learn what life insurance companies do with your money. Although you shouldn't be shocked. Before you give money to anybody, you should know where it's going, what it's doing, what they're doing with your money. Because as Ben said, there are things that are legal that you're like, wait, that's legal. It's like, yeah, it is. But he's got shell companies that are going to get him in more trouble. He's got more legal issues on the horizon. We come back. We've done what if stories before in the history lesson. I don't think a lot of people will remember this one involving a state team years ago. We'll do the history lesson next.
All right, boys and girls, take a seat and listen up as we take a trip down memory lane with Marc Daniels in this week's history lesson.
So I mentioned today's history lesson is a little bit of a what if, and I'm not quite sure people remember this unless maybe you're a diehard fan. But Chris, do you know that not once, not twice, but almost a third time, but two for sure, the Miami Dolphins considered trading Dan Marino?
Did not know this.
Some make reference to a column that longtime Miami Herald columnist Greg Cody wrote about the decision of Mitchell versus Marino, and should the Dolphins trade Dan Marino. That's not one of the times Miami thought about trading Dan Marino. In 1988, the Dolphins are finishing up a 6-10 season. It's the sixth year of Dan Marino as the Miami Dolphin quarterback, and after the second year of going 14-2 and 12-4, the Dolphins now find themselves in a little bit of a slump. And after going 6-10, Marino, by the way, that year, 58% completion percentage, 28 touchdowns, and 23 picks for Miami. But that was a year for the Dolphins where frustration began to settle in. As Miami that year, going 6-10, found themselves missing the playoffs, and will be the third of what was 4 consecutive years. That season ended with a disgruntled Dan Marino over the current state of Miami's offense, despite numbers that he put up. Marino also a bit frustrated about his contract. This going back to 1988, and asked if there was a chance that he might seek a trade. Marino said he planned on playing out the final 3 years of his contract. People then had talked about when Marino returned to his hometown Pittsburgh area. In fact, a couple of Pittsburgh stations talked about what it would take to bring Dan Marino to Pittsburgh. The Dolphins ended the season losing 40-24 to the Steelers of all teams, and Marino inside the Dolphin locker room, then Orange Bowl, talked about his contract, said, look, I got 3 more years. I'll be here in Miami. I don't see myself playing anywhere else anytime soon. I'm very happy here. I enjoy playing here, and I always have. There was some that wondered if Dolphin coach Don Shula, who oversaw the football operations, had put a few feelers out. He said there was no talk about trading Dan Marino within our organization and couldn't see that happening, but some believe the number of teams had contacted the Dolphins about a possible Marino trade. Well, the Dolphins missed the playoffs in 89. The team goes 8-8, which then leads to a few interesting things that take place. After that season ends in early 1990, Don Shula wonders if the Dolphins might think about pivoting. And Don Shula had a conversation with someone that led to talk about a deal. Care to guess? Any idea? That'd be Al Davis and the then Los Angeles Raiders in early 1990. Shula had great respect for Al Davis, too. Had known each other for years. And not only did the two talk, had several meetings and got even further. Different reports say that Don Shula and Al Davis had reached a point that they had come to deal terms about actually trading Dan Marino. Shula said he had to sleep on it, not once, but multiple times. He took into account the football side of it. He took into account the optics of trading Dan Marino, despite the frustration of missing the playoffs for 4 straight years, and it was also bad on the stain of Don Shula's historic career. He wasn't sure about it. Then the fear of, what if the story gets out? We don't make the deal. What if the compensation is such that I'm wrong, meaning Shula's guessing wrong about what he's getting back? But missing the playoffs those 4 years led to Marino being a bit frustrated and Shula being a bit frustrated. And others point out that that's when the friction began between the two. Meanwhile, Al Davis thought he had the deal done. Davis told people within the Raiders organization to prepare for this blockbuster deal, and he visioned the Los Angeles Raiders with that face of the franchise and Dan Marino having at least a decade left to play. So much so that his PR team began working on how they would market Dan Marino across Los Angeles for the 1990 season. Except Don Shula's second time that he asked Al Davis, can I sleep on it? And that's when Don Shula got cold feet and called Al Davis back and said, Al, I'm sorry, but I'm going to pass on the deal. He felt that he couldn't do it, got greedy, and said to Al, unless you do the following. And he countered Al Davis, increased his demands of first-round pick and players, both young players and veteran players. Al Davis hung up on Don Shula. Called Shula back a couple of days later and said, forget about it. Are you kidding me? So Shula had gone from, I don't think we can do this, to, I don't know, we've missed the playoffs 4 years, to, okay, how about this? Davis felt he had gone above and beyond in a deal, and they had an agreement. Shula asked not once but twice, can he sleep on it, and then came back and demanded more. That little sneaky Don Shula, GM right there. Al Davis got ticked off even when Shula called him back to try to ease the tension, and the deal was off. Dan Marino, by the way, during the discussion back and forth, had said to Don Shula, in the event you think about trading me, one of the teams that I'd like to go to would be the Raiders. Got to remember, kids, there was a time everybody said that. It was kind of a cool thing to do. The deal never happened. Dan Marino stays in Miami for the 1990 season. The Dolphins go 12-4, losing the divisional round. That season in 1990 for Dan Marino. As the team goes 12-4, 21 touchdowns, 11 picks for Marino. The Dolphins next year fell to 8-8 before bouncing back in 1992 to go 11-5 and lost the conference championship. Dan Marino finishes out his great career as a Miami Dolphin. Don Shula came close to pulling the trigger on the deal, except he got greedy. And Al Davis said, get out of here, old man. And it never happened. Want to play that what if?
Dan Marino, the Raiders. I was a wee baby in those days.
Yeah. Yeah, it would have been a 29-year-old Dan Marino. So in his prime. In his prime. Shula goes back and demands more. I want more. More picks, more players. And Al Davis swears he had a deal done. And
Who were the, I don't know if you remember.
Don't know, and no one ever got the numbers as far as draft picks. And
No.
I'm sorry.
No, who was the Raiders receiving core back then? Do you think Marino goes on to have a semblance of the career he had in Miami?
Well, you got Duper Clayton are the guys that are at Miami at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let me go see here. I can do this real quick if I can find this. 1990 Raiders. That's pretty good, Chris, by the way.
Thank you.
Okay, here we go. 1990 Raiders went 12-4.
Okay.
Jay Schrader's the quarterback. Leading receiver, Willie Gault. How about that? Let's see. Willie Gault, Mervin Fernandez. How about that? Gault had 95 catches. Targets. It's Mervin Fernandez, Willie Gault, Ethan Horton, Tim Brown, only had 18 catches that year. He was dinged up with injuries. And Bo Jackson and Marcus Allen were the running backs.
Oh, wow.
Put Marino on that team? Huh? What could have been? That's today's history lesson. Put a wrap on the Thursday show next.
Time for the latest news, gossip, trends, and off-the-wall stories. Trends.
That's the craziest thing I ever heard.
All right, got a UCF scrimmage tonight. Maybe we'll report on a few things tomorrow, but it's a private scrimmage.
What can you let us know?
I'll have to give you a little nugget or two or something like that.
Oh, I can't wait.
We got preseason football tonight, week 2. Gets underway with a couple of games.
Been looking at Twitter, and I see Joe Shad talking about how the Giants' defensive line's just owning Miami right now in their joint practice.
Duh. How about your boys, the Saints? A few fights at practice there, huh?
Who does Kellen Moore think he is? Who does Kellen Moore think he is?
Former Cowboy OC.
Yeah. Who does he think he is?
Back down. Nobody.
Can't step up to Dallas. Can't step up to Dallas like that.
Why don't your team come back home and practice?
I don't care what wrestler's nephew's on your team.
Cut out with the California stuff. Get home already. Got that massive facility in Frisco.
Hey, at least they're not by the substation. That's all I care about.
We got high school football games tonight. The season gets underway tonight. Games tomorrow. Our Southeast Steel High School football report will be back tomorrow. Mike Tuck will sit here. It's a scheduled off day for me because the UCF football kickoff luncheon. Again, I thank Chris and Kelly and Scott Harris for sitting in yesterday. I shared the news earlier. My mom passed away yesterday, so I was down in South Florida. Appreciate those guys hopping in at the last moment as I needed to be where I needed to be. Chris, have a good day.
You as well, Mark.
Mike, again, will be here tomorrow. I'm back on a Monday. Miss any of today's program, go where you get your favorite podcast. Type of the Beat of Sports on Demand to get access to the entire show. Subscribe, get it downloaded, listen when it's convenient for you. You want to watch the video stream back, go to our YouTube page, 96 on the game. Orlando, click on the live button, and you can watch the show there. Chris, producer, I'm Marc Daniels. Talk to you soon again for the Beat of Sports.